How to invest $1,000 in 2020. That's what I'm sharing with you guys here today. We're going to go ahead and talk in depth about a ton of different ways you could invest $1,000 in 2020. Now, I'm going to give you my personal opinion on how one might want to invest $1,000 in 2020. And this video could be relevant even if you have more than $1,000. Let's say you have $5,000 or $10,000. Obviously, this video here today is focused on $1,000. How do you invest that? But we're going to go through all these different scenarios. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about starting a business, talk about books. We're going to talk about college, paying off debt, cryptocurrencies, savings accounts, CD accounts, stocks, all these different things. And we're going to talk about what's the actual best way to invest your money in 2020. So I hope you guys really enjoy today's video. I hope you get a ton of value out of it. Let me know in the comments section how you are investing your money in 2020, regardless if you're watching this video and you got $500, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. Let me know in that comment section how you are personally investing your money in 2020. I would love to hear from you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy hearing my opinion on these different ways on how you can invest in 2020. So make sure you smash the thumbs up button. Let's start getting into this, guys. So before we even talk about each of these as an individual, I'm going to break down each of these and we'll talk about it and I'll give my opinion on them. First, let's just acknowledge that if you're talking about investing in anything, you've got to make sure you fully understand whatever it is you're investing, okay? So for instance, cryptocurrencies, make sure you fully understand cryptocurrencies. You understand the pluses and the minuses, the risks involved with that. Same thing with real estate. If you're thinking about college, why would you want to spend money on college? Those sorts of things. If you're starting a business, make sure you have a plan going in. So no matter which one of these you end up choosing to invest your money in 2020, just understand you've got to put in the upfront work and you've got to understand these things really well. You got to do your research work before you ever invest a dime. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, whether you got $100, $1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, regardless of how much money you personally have at a particular time, whenever you invest in anything, you should always take that money with care and respect that money. It literally doesn't matter. Sometimes people think if you have $1 million, that's so much more important than having $1,000. Regardless of how much money you have, you need to treat it with respect and you need to treat that money with care and you need to think about it. Where's the absolute best place I can put this $1,000 so hopefully I can get a huge return on investment over the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years. Because whenever you're thinking about investing in anything, your mind always has to go to ROI, return on investment. And what return on investment can I potentially get from this thing? But not just that, what is the risk going in? So whenever I think about I'm obviously a stock market investor. And so before I ever make any investment in any stock or just any investment in general, I always think about risk reward. What is my risk going in with this thing? What's the chance I lose 100% of my money in this thing? What's the chance I lose 50%? I think about that and then I think about, okay, what's the chance I double my money in this thing, triple my money, quadruple my money, okay? So that's something very important you got to think about before we even get into each of these and I break these down. Just remember, you need to think in terms of return on investment and you need to think in terms of risk versus reward and what is that potential there, okay? So let's start going into each of these on how to invest $1,000 in 2020. Hope you guys enjoy this, okay? Cryptocurrencies is the first one. So cryptocurrencies is more interesting to me than it's probably ever been in the past. And the reason being is cryptocurrencies have now been around for a lot longer and it's much easier, in my opinion, now to see who the winners are going to be and who the losers are going to be in this type of space versus, if we go back a few years ago, there was a ton of hype in the space and people that had, didn't know a thing about cryptocurrencies were investing their money just because they thought they could make a bunch of money on their money, and cryptocurrencies were going up so much. I mean, if you go back to 2017 into 2018, it just seemed like cryptocurrencies were flying high. You had a ton of retail people come into cryptocurrencies that had no clue about these things, and it was just a game of big hype and hysteria. But now going into 2020, I think it's a little easier to see some of the winners in this space and kind of differentiate, okay, this is going to be around for the long term and this thing over here is not. I think it's much easier now to see that. And when I look at things like Ethereum, very, very intriguing when I look at Ethereum and I look at how many industries a project like that could potentially disrupt over time. So when I look at something like that, it is a really, really intriguing thing. But the thing you got to understand about cryptocurrencies is that you have to understand understand cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies, in my opinion, is one of the hardest subjects to really fully wrap your head around. There are a ton of very intelligent people out there that still don't even really understand cryptocurrencies at the end of the day. So just make sure if you want to get into the crypto space, you get in the respect that you fully understand these things, and just like realize it's probably going to take you weeks, if not months, of study on cryptocurrencies just to begin to start to understand them. And then you have to look at all the different cryptos and figure out which ones you want to personally put your money in from there, okay? So just understand there's going to have to be a lot of research work that goes into this, and make sure you never invest in anything you don't fully understand. So if there's a cryptocurrency and you heard some hype about it, and this might be the next big one, you better fully understand that cryptocurrency before you ever put your hard-earned money into that cryptocurrency, okay? But cryptos are more interesting to me than they ever have been in the past, but it's a few select ones that I'm like, okay, that's probably the winner there, that's probably the winner there. There's a lot of them that honestly are super speculative, and who knows if they'll even be around in, let's say, 2021, never mind even talking about like 2025 and 2030, okay? So that covers crypto, okay? Let's go over next one. College. Well, $1,000 in college isn't going to get you much, especially if you're talking about going to a university. I mean, $1,000, I don't even know if you can get one class at a university for $1,000. However, sometimes you can do like some community college classes, and sometimes those might be like $300 to $500, as long as you're like in-state and all those sorts of things. So if there's a specific like subject you want to learn about, and there's a good instructor at one of the colleges, and let's say it's $300, $500, $600 to take one of those classes at a community college, maybe that makes sense for you. Maybe it's a public speaking class. Maybe it's a certain kind of business class. Maybe it's an accounting class, okay? Accounting, it's a phenomenal, if you got a really good instructor, like learning accounting can be tremendously helpful, regardless if you want to start a business, regardless if you want to manage somebody else's business in the future, or regardless if you want to be an investor, because I can tell you, I would not be where I am at now as an investor in the stock market, or just as a businessman and things like that, without really understanding accounting. So you can absolutely take advantage of things like that. Don't just think like, well, I can't go to college because I'm not going after a specific degree. That's a bunch of crap. That whole old notion about I have to get a degree to make sense to go to college, I'm just not a believer in that. I believe in going to college to learn skills that will help you. And that's what I did. I learned a bunch of skills that helped me. I took like 3 levels of accounting in college. I took many classes on communication and building relationships and business in general and things like that. And then I dipped, okay? Then I got out and I went after the money after that. I didn't worry about I have to graduate or something like that. You can learn some great things. And I went to community college, by the way, which you can learn some phenomenal things if you got some good instructors on, at community colleges and things like that. So that could potentially be an option for you out there, okay? Real estate. So I want to give 2 opinions on this. The first one is, this video is obviously focused on how to invest $1,000 in 2020. And with real estate, unless you like crowdfund source, like some more income, you're pretty much not going to be able to buy any real estate for $1,000, because usually the down payment you have to make on real estate most of the time is like minimum of 5%, but usually, a 10% or a 20% if you're thinking about real estate from an investment perspective or something like that, okay? So it's not the most interesting one to discuss when we're talking about investing $1,000 in 2020. However, let me just give my opinion overall on real estate. And a lot of people are wondering, should they buy a house? And some of you guys might be watching this video that might be thinking about buying a house. And I could just say with the real estate market right now, some people are saying, well, the prices might be a little high. Yeah, but inventories are really low right now. And if you look across, I'm speaking, mostly to my United States viewers right now, when we're talking about real estate, the market's actually really healthy in a real estate perspective right now, especially if you're thinking about like middle class housing and whatnot. Inventories are really low, and the bottom line is, if you think you want to live somewhere for the next 5 or 10 years, it might make sense to invest and buy that house for yourself rather than pay rent. On the flip side, if you think there's a decent chance you might move, you might want to live somewhere else 3 years from now, 5 years from now, something like that, then in those situations, it might not make sense for you to buy real estate, and you could end up costing yourself a lot of money. Some people get tied into a house, they buy a house and then they don't want to move, and then what happens if something happens in the short term with real estate prices or something like that, then you can't move. And that's obviously not an ideal situation. But buying real estate, generally speaking is a good decision as long as you plan to rent out that real estate to tenants and it's in a good market where essentially you can get more rental income than basically the mortgage you have to pay on that house unless you buy it cash. And then still you'd want to think about, well, what would the mortgage on this house be if somebody else bought it? Can I get more rental money than that for this particular house? And obviously you want to get the gains over time. Or if you just want to live in a house for the next 10 years or something like that, it's generally speaking a good idea to invest in real estate. Because where do real estate prices in general tend to go up? Obviously they tend to go up. If you look historically, there's been very few times that real estate prices went down or down in any big way. Obviously, you know, a city like mine here in Las Vegas got hammered by the 2008-2009 recession there because real estate got way overbuilt out here and people were spec buying homes. It had gotten to such a crazy level. It was so crazy in markets like that. You just don't see that type of activity right now in the real estate market. And that's obviously a very good sign if you're somebody that's buying real estate, because when people are just trying to buy homes and condos and as many of them as possible, and the bartender at the local bar, he's trying to buy 5-10 homes, like you know, when you start seeing those sorts of things and that type of activity, those are definitely things you want to worry about. Now, moving from real estate, you know, CD accounts, savings accounts, I don't really count these as really like investments, because whenever I think about an investment, I think about there's got to be some risk and some like return there that might be outside of the ordinary. And obviously with CD accounts, savings accounts, your money's kind of guaranteed. But I want to just bring this up because some people think, well, what if I just put my $1,000 in a savings account? What if I just put my $1,000 in a CD account or something like that? And you can absolutely do that. Just understand the amount of money you're going to make on that money is going to be really low. We're talking like 2% or less, generally speaking, if you put your money in a CD account or savings account. And keep in mind, if you're thinking about CD accounts, which generally speaking have better interest rates than a savings account, like the average savings account you might be able to get at a bank right now might be like 0.5%, if not less. Now, on the flip side, a CD account, you know, if you go to a big bank, you might be able to get 1.5% of your money, 1.75% on your money. But keep in mind that money needs to be locked up for you to make that money on the CD account. So that's obviously not an ideal situation. The way I kind of think about savings accounts, CD accounts, that's just a place to park money if you want to just try to be able to like keep up with inflation. Because keep in mind, like generally speaking, like you need to make like 2% on your money just to kind of like keep up with inflation generally. And there's some online banks out there like Ally and a few others that, you know, I don't even know if they're quite yielding 2%. They're probably yielding 1 point something percent now. But at least you get to try to keep up with inflation or something like that. So definitely not my favorite things to do as far as investing money. But if you're just looking to park money somewhere, usually it makes sense to just kind of park your money there. So at least you can try to keep up with inflation. Because keep in mind, your dollar becomes worth less and less over time. That's just the way it works. Speaking about dollars, okay, what about paying off debt? Okay, you might be watching this video, you might have debt of some kind. Here's how I think about debt and paying off debt. And this applies regardless if you're watching this video and you got $1,000, less than $1,000, more than $1,000. Paying off debt is generally a very intelligent decision as long as that debt is, let's say, above a 6% interest rate. Because the way I like to think about it is if I just invest in like an index fund in the stock market, right? That just kind of like tracks S&P 500. Well, on average, you'll make about 8% per year. Some years you'll do worse than that, some years you'll do better. But over the long term, like you can expect if you just invest into an index fund, you'll make about 8% on your money per year, okay? So I'm thinking about paying off debt. Anything that's, you know, close to 8%, and especially anything over 8%, that needs to be paid off before you pretty much start investing. Because that's just destroying your money in a massive, massive way. However, if you have some debt out there, like let's say you have a rental property or something, and you're paying a 3 or 4% interest rate on that, generally, those types of debts you don't have to worry about nearly as much because the interest rate's so low. And once again, if the stock market on average goes up 7 to 8% per year and you got money parked in some debt and you're thinking about, should I just buy an index fund where I could get on average 7 to 8% per year, or should I pay off extra debt that I'm paying 3% or 4% on? Obviously, the more intelligent decision generally is to invest that money to get gains as long as that interest rate's really low. But a lot of you guys might be watching this. Some of you guys might have some credit card debt that are watching this video right now that's at, you know, a 15%, 20%, 25% rate that you're paying on right now. In those sorts of situations, you absolutely need to pay off those ASAP. And that's where like every dollar you have that's extra money should be going. If you have some type of double digit, basically interest rate on your debt, 10% plus, that needs to be the number one focus to get that type of debt paid off, because that is what I like to call super bad debt. When you're talking about interest rates above 10%, that's super bad debt. You need to get that paid off ASAP before you even worry about investing. And once that debt's paid off, then you could go ahead and start investing, okay? But, that can be a phenomenal thing to do there, is pay off some debt, okay? Starting a business. Obviously, I'm an entrepreneur and I love starting a business. And if you're thinking about starting a business with $1,000, I think that's a phenomenal thing, okay? Now, keep in mind, if you only have $1,000 to your name, there aren't a ton of businesses you can start, but there's still like plenty of businesses that you can start, like detailing cars, like going to people's homes and things like that and detailing their cars. Like that's definitely a business that just came to my mind right now that you could absolutely start for a small amount of money. There's definitely plenty of businesses that you can start for small amounts of money. And you can even like go on Google and like type in like businesses to start with less than $1,000. And I can guarantee you'll see a ton of lists with a ton of different business ideas that you could go ahead and start for less than $1,000. Okay, so starting a business is phenomenal, but keep in mind, when starting a business, it's more likely it's going to be slow getting started. Okay, so when you're thinking about going after customers, whether you're starting a B2B business, which essentially means your business selling to other businesses, or you're a B2C business, meaning your business selling to consumers, just like average people, regardless of what type of business you're starting, just understand going in, it's likely going to be a slow process and it's likely going to take some time to build that business up. It doesn't happen overnight. I remember my first like true business I started was my real estate marketing company. I'd messed around with some business ideas in the past, but I never actually fully went after it. And like, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. Real estate marketing business, I started at the end of 2015. I can tell you it was a slow build. The first 6 months were incredibly slow. And I thought many times, I'm like, am I just wasting my time or something like that? And around roughly the 6-month mark or so, I started to get some more customers and clients. And eventually I got to a point where I was able to at least pay the bills with that business. But the best thing to do is actually start a business when it can be a side business and you can kind of, maybe if you have a job that can kind of support you at a time. And then you can work on this side business over here in your free time. Because, most people, if they work a job, they work 30 hours to 40 hours a week. This still leaves a ton of time each and every day, never mind on the weekends, that you could be grinding, working on a side business or something like that, who knows, this might become your big business, okay? This might become the thing that allows you to end up quitting your job and allows you to maybe make a lot more money than you ever dreamed from starting a business. If you ask me, what is the number one thing? Like if you just asked me, like if somebody was trying to become, let's say, a multimillionaire, or let's just say they were trying to do much better in life in general, what's the number one thing I would give them for advice? And it's starting a business. I remember as a kid, we struggled and we lived in a really bad area. Like the first 12 years of my life, we lived in a really bad area and we didn't have much money. And my dad, a lot of those years, would go in and out of jobs, car dealerships, trying to sell some commercial real estate and just working for different companies and just really not making much progress until he started his own business. And then he started to build that and we were able to get out of poverty and end up getting like a middle-class lifestyle and things like that. So if you always ask me, I'm always going to be partial to starting a business. I think it's the number one way out of poverty, and it's the number one thing that gives you a chance to have a nice middle-class lifestyle or maybe even an upper-class lifestyle if you can end up building that business into a big business, okay? So I absolutely love that one. As long as you have the vision for it and you're a go-getter and you're ready to go out there and get it, the world is yours, okay? Stocks. So stocks is obviously, that's my specialty. That's where the majority of my money is always invested, is in stocks. So if I think about stocks, I think about it a little similarly to something like crypto in the respect that you got to understand there's a lot you have to learn when it comes to stocks. It's not just so simple like you like a business and you're like, I'm going to put money in that business. No, you got to not only like a business, you got to fully understand the ins and outs of that business. You got to understand the competition. You got to understand the income statement. You got to understand the balance sheet. You got to understand the valuation. Are you getting that company for a good price or a bad price? You got to be able to understand things like trailing PE, forward PE, price to sales ratio. You got to be able to understand all these sorts of things. And if you don't, then obviously you got to be taught those things and you need to learn all those sorts of things. I have a ton of free videos videos on my YouTube channel that teaches different things about the stock market. So stocks can be phenomenal and you can get some amazing gains. I had an amazing 2019 in my public account alone, where every trade's verified in my private stock group. We booked about $37,000 of profits and we're up over 6 figures on our current positions in there. It was an amazing 2019. And so needless to say, if you put in that work to stock market investing, you can make, a great deal of money on your money. And it's something that's definitely scalable, so it's not like you can just get up to a certain level and stop scaling. No, with stock market investing, it's absolutely one of the most scalable things. And as the numbers get bigger, you can keep going bigger. Because here's the thing, if you have $1 million invested in the stock market, that's like nothing. Because the stock market is so huge and these companies are massive, especially a lot of the big ones have, hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap. Some even have $1 trillion+ market cap on them. Those sorts of companies, just because you invest a certain amount of money in them, it doesn't even move the stock price or something like that. So when it comes to stocks, it's a scalable idea that as you get more and more experience, you get better and better at. Just make sure you fully understand the things to look for in companies, how to value companies, and all those sorts of things before you ever start touching stocks, if you haven't in the past. But I love stocks. The market's a little rich right now, but at the same time, there's still several stocks out there that I look at, and there are opportunities. And dividend investing is something I'm definitely going after in 2020. And when we talk about dividend investing, we're talking about making cash flow money from stocks that pay off dividends, and then you can go ahead and take that money and redeploy that into that same stock or other stocks and just keep building the dividend piles bigger and bigger, so the amounts of money you get next year is even bigger than what you got last year, and then the following year is bigger than what you got the last year. And so that's a phenomenal way of investing in the stock market as well, because you're not just worried about the stock price going up, you're also thinking about, I'm going to get this dividend cash flow is going to grow and grow over time, okay? And the last one, if we're thinking about, how you can invest your money in 2020, obviously there's online courses, there's books you could buy off Amazon, things like that. And first off, go to your local library. There's a lot of great books at your local library. There's some books that definitely won't be there if you're trying to learn something about investing, business related, that you might have to buy off Amazon. But how much do books really cost? Books are generally like $10 to $20. So you could buy a ton of them over time and have a whole book collection. But actually, I wouldn't suggest doing that, because sometimes what I see sometimes is people buy a whole bunch of books, business books, investing books on Amazon. They're all super motivated, and then they have all these books and they're like put themselves in a situation where they feel overwhelmed because they have like all these books now, and they're like, shoot, man, I don't want to read all these books, and they just get overwhelmed. They don't end up reading them all. Buy one book at a time if you're going to buy books. Don't buy 10 or 20 or 30 business and investing books all at once. You're like, oh, this one's got 4.5 stars. This one's got 4.5 stars. Oh, this one's by a famous person. I got to buy this one, because then you'll probably end up reading none, and then you're just going to have this book collection that looks cool on a bookcase, but you never actually read any of them. That's not an ideal situation, okay? Obviously, over the past few years, online courses have become very popular, but if you're thinking about something like, let's say you want to learn like Amazon FBA, or you want to learn like Shopify selling or something like that, like whatever it is online course-wise, just make sure you understand that the cheapest course doesn't necessarily mean it's the best deal, and the most expensive course doesn't mean it's the best course, okay? At the end of the day, you got to look at whoever's teaching that, and do you respect that person? Is that person successful at what they do and things like that? Like before a lot of courses can be, between $100 and I've seen some courses as expensive as $3,500. So regardless of the price point, whether it's $100 you spend, $500, $1,000, $3,000 on a course, just make sure going in you've done your full research and you realize like this is money that's going to be well invested. No different than if you were to spend $500 or $1,000 on a community college class or something like that. I would have hoped you would have researched and kind of realized, okay, this is what they're teaching in that class and this is why it's going to be valuable to me and things like that, guys. So you certainly have a lot of options for you out there in 2020 when it comes to investing, and I want to hear which one you guys are going after in 2020. And make sure you're investing your money somehow every single year, because the whole name of the money game is making your money into more money. That is how you really level up financially in life, and you go from here to here and here to here. Okay, guys? Always be investing, always be looking into new ways on how to make your money into money. Thank you for watching and have a great day.